Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we have for you a getting started video focusing on the Beasts of Chaos faction, and in particular the Brayherd Sub-Faction-ish thing that it is. Now let's talk a little bit about what I mean about that. So Beasts of Chaos have their own sub-factions as well, but they also have these different types of units within the army that play differently. They all have a bunch of special rules associated with different armies. You might be familiar with something like this if you've seen, say, Gloomspite Gits. They have all the different types of, like, Squig, the Night Goblins, the Spider Riders, etc. Well, Beasts of Chaos have the same sort of thing, where you have Brayherd, Warherd, which is the Minotaurs, and Thunderscorn, the Dragon Ogres. These three different parts have very unique rules that make each one of them work in different ways, and this can be combined with sub-factions on top. So we're going to be focusing on using a Brayherd focused army. So Brayherd have main thing is they have ambush tactics. So they have this thing where they can set up half their units off the table and they can bring them in on the second turn and as reserves. They also have the ability, a brand new ability, in fact, in Broken Realms Kragnos, where the Gore units, and this is Gore Unit War Scroll, not Gore keyword, so only actual Gores get this rule, but when they can reroll charge rolls for friendly Gore units if they were set up from reserve and have been set up on the battlefield in the same turn. So your ambushing Gore units get rerollable charges, which is nice and solid. I think it's a decent addition to their rule set and really actually gives Gores a little bit of a purpose. The army as a whole with Brayherd is very horde focused. It's going to have lots of models and lots of units is also what you want, because board control is how this army is going to win games. It does have some destructive pieces in the form of like Bestigor and stuff like that. However, it really is going to come down to whether you can control the board with a sheer amount of bodies of models themselves and actual units as well. You've got to have that right mix with Brayherd of having smaller units and larger units to do the damage, but smaller units to sort of just throw into your opponent's army and die. So it's very important to try and get that mix right. But that all said, let's look at how we can start collecting a Brayherd focused Beasts of Chaos army. So my first pickup for Brayherd would be a Bray Shaman. They're a great sorcerer to have. They've got some really cool utility abilities as well. So the fact that they actually give +3 movement to all surrounding Brayherd units near them is really nice, and just it makes your beastmen that little bit faster. They're also got some cool access to a bunch of different spells, and they're a hero as well, which means they can be sacrificing your units off to the altar to get some additional summons on the board. Ungor Raiders are a unit I definitely recommend picking up first. I do prefer them over the normal Ungor. However, obviously Ungor Raiders are not battle line pure, so the options here potentially are not going to be straight battle line out of the box, but if you're playing very small games, it's not something to worry about when you're learning the game really, whether you meet restrictions or not. Ungor Raiders are definitely a cool little unit. They've got some pre-game moves, which once again just allows you to get that board control early and screen off and stop your juicy stuff getting hit at the back. Speaking of juicy stuff, why not have a look at Bestigor? This is the Brayherd's heavy hitting unit. They can do some serious work, Bestigor, with those giant axes of theirs. When they got range 1 and damage, and only 1 damage though, but they do have access to a load of attacks, and there's some great ways to buff them to get even more attacks onto these models, which can be really cool and fun. There's definitely other options you can go down, but we'll talk about some other options in a sec when we look at how we can expand, and maybe you might think that those units might be what you want to start with instead. There's really no wrong way to start with Brayherd. You could start with some of the units we're about to mention in the other part of the video, but you just got to remember you're going to be buying a lot of models for a smaller game-sized army, because you're still probably going to fit about 50 models on the table with Brayherd at least. So, as mentioned, where do we go to next? Well, Gore are definitely a unit to look at next. Gore and Ungor as well are two of your basic battle line units, and they have some cool abilities. As mentioned at the start of the video, Gore have the ability to reroll charges from ambush, and Ungor are 60 points for 10 models, which is just a nice amount of bodies on the table, meaning you're going to get a lot of bodies. They're cool to have that unit sitting around your sacrificial altar for your heroes to knock off to get some more summons onto the board of things better than those Ungor. Tuskor Chariots are a cool option as well, potentially even bring them on from summon. Chariots are just nice. They do some cool little bits of damage here and there, and they're really fast as well, and take up a lot of board space for their unit size as well. So that's another nice thing about them. The Beast Lord is definitely something you're going to want to pick up, and we're going to talk a little bit about him in the next part of the video when we start looking at army list building, because Beast Lords can be built to be pretty nasty. And the last bit of the video, really just sort of focusing in on this, is the fact we're going to look at Chaos Spawn, and this should give away, I guess, if you're particularly knowledgeable about Beasts of Chaos, what potential sub-faction we're going to look in for the Brayherd, but Chaos Spawn in a particular sub-faction give you some really cool buffs as they become sort of a focal point of the army, which is really cool. Having these models in addition to your Brayherd, giving off some buffs to really make your Brayherd units hit that little bit harder is a cool thing, I think. It just gives you a cool sense of narrative for the army. Alright, so here we have a little sample army list for Beasts of Chaos using a Brayherd sort of theme throughout the army, and we're going to be going into the sub-faction Gavespawn. Now Gavespawn's an interesting sub-faction, and this is a big reason why we've chosen Chaos Spawn. So, first of all, we get the gift of Morgar. So if a friendly Gavespawn hero is slain, you roll a dice for the model, and on a 2+, a Chaos Spawn is added to your army, and you set it up where they were. Again, to any of the same sort of marks, if it had any particular marks, though they cannot use the Cursed Gift of the Dark God's ability. And then you also get the command ability that you can get for all Gavespawn, where if you use it, you do so, you pick a friendly Gavespawn unit whole within 12 inch of friendly Chaos Spawn from Gavespawn, and add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's melee weapons until the end of the phase. And this can be used as many times as you have command points. So, something really nice there. You can sort of see how like this stacks up and gets our Bestigor that little bit more fighty. Now, looking into our army list, we've got a Beast Lord, and he's going to be our general. He's going to have the command trait Unraveling Aura. So what this does is it allows him to dispel as if he were a wizard. So, you know, a little bit more magical defense. It's nice. It's not a terrible command trait to have. And then the artifact power he's going to have is you pick one of his melee weapons to be called the Mutating Null Blade. You add 2 to the damage characteristic of that weapon. However, each unmodified hit roll of 1 for attacks made by that weapon inflicts 1 mortal wound upon the bearer. So it does have some negatives. Now, the unfortunate part is the Beast Lord has lost his ability for rerolls, so it can be a little bit hurty. Maybe spending some command points if he does get into combat to try and get that axe swinging and doing some more damage is something to maybe do to stop him hurting himself, though it is only 1 mortal wound if he does roll a 1, so you know it's not potentially going to kill him, although he does have like 6 attacks, so he could actually kill himself outright if he rolls a lot of 1s. We then have a great Brave Shaman who's going to have the spell Tendrils of Atrophy. This is a really cool spell because it -1s your opponent's armor save, so this stacks with Rend, so you can -1 here and then get a Rend as well, and it can really just make your opponent's units not have armor saves at all, almost. For battle line, we've gone for 10 Ungor. These are going to be the unit that sits around our Hearthstone and gets sacrificed by that great Brave Shaman as he sits at the backfield. We then got 20 Gore for a nice deep striking unit that we can land onto objectives to try and get them off our opponent with sheer weight of bodies. We've got a unit of 10 Bestigor and a unit of 20 Bestigor as well. These 2 units, you can sort of decide what you want to do. You could always make this 3 units of 10, 1 unit of 30. You can play around here. Same with the Gore as well. You can play around 1 unit of 20, 2 units of 10, however you like, and just see what works for you. There's always going to be some other combinations of like the numbers here that do work in different ways. So it's always worth just sort of playing around with those numbers in the units. For our other units, 2 units of 10 Ungor Raider, this gives us great screening ability for the army and just pushes out and allows us to get board control before the game even begins. Rounding out the list, we've got 1 Chaos Spawn in the army to start with. This is just going to be a unit, probably follows around the unit of 20 Bestigor in this list, just making sure they can absolutely smash and hit like a truck and do what they need to do and clear off those things that we actually need to get rid of in our opponent's army. With that said though, I'd love to know everyone's thoughts, your ideas, and how you've been going with your Beasts of Chaos. I've just picked up Beasts of Chaos again, and they've been a ton of fun to play. They're a really interesting army to play on the tabletop. A little bit unforgiving, but they can be a ton of fun, and they play a very different sort of game. It's really interesting to play them. Love to hear your thoughts and your experiences with Beasts of Chaos down in the comments below. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to go like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. And while you're at it on YouTube, why not go check out my featured channel section where there's a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content creators putting out a bunch of fantastic content from everything: battle reports, painting videos, lore videos, tactical videos, and more besides that as well. Lastly, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel on Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to our Patreons Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Alder and Shot First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Argu, and Anthony B. And thank you to our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Fire Titan, Steve T, The Real Zeop, and Chris Wallace. Thank you all for helping support the channel like you do. It means the absolute world to us. And if you'd like to help support the channel like they do, you can do so by following the link in the description to either Patreon or YouTube members. Once again, everyone, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.